Good evening and welcome to the Savage Universe. I am JM and we're here to talk with Scott of Flash Gordon fame. We're also here to see how much of the theme song we can sing before we get copyright.
Flash!
Whoa!
Yeah, close enough. That's a bit. That's it. No more. No more.
That's it. What's the
The copyright strike. No, we're not going to have that
that's
happen.
right. No. So, welcome to the Savage Universe.
Me, yes. It's my pleasure to be here, and thanks for inviting me along.
Oh, of course. I am very excited to talk about this with you. I'm a huge Flash Gordon fan, and we're doing these sci-fi celebrations because the Science Fiction Companion is out on Kickstarter, and it is crushing it. We've hit light speed, I think, is where we're at now. We're currently at 234,000.
Yeah, we're at plaid now, I think. Right?
Yeah, we've gone plaid. Well, Venkel, I'm really glad that we had you at Mechs. I actually wrote the mech adventure that is kind of being packaged with the Sci-Fi Companion. Daryl's like, "Do you want to write a BattleTech adventure?" And I said, "Sure, take my money." And he's like, "No, we would pay you to write this." I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "But the only thing is, I want giant monsters in it as well." I'm like, "Oh, so we want a Pacific Rim BattleTech adventure. I think I can do this." But we're here celebrating all of the cool things that have happened with Savage Worlds and science fiction settings and authors. We have two more Ace authors coming on next week, and then another one the week after. So very cool. But I mean, Flash Gordon, man, the granddaddy of science fiction here. I mean, yes, we were talking before how you could see Triplanetary influence Dune or influence Foundation, and then Dune, Flash Gordon. But let's talk about Flash Gordon. How did you get involved with this? What is your love of Flash, and why are there Christmas adventures that have been spawned by this?
Lots of good questions. Okay, so I'm a Flash Gordon fan going all the way back to as far back as I can remember. It's one of those stories. I think growing up, I grew up with a father who was a huge science fiction fan. Yeah. So thankfully he got me into all that stuff. Shelves and shelves of old paperback books and stuff. But we used to watch those serials, the old Buster Crabbe serials on like Saturday or Sunday morning in syndication. And that was my first introduction. And from that, I then discovered, oh, there's all sorts of other wonderful Flash Gordon stuff out there. So that's when I started to find, comics and the radio plays and all this other stuff. So all that old school stuff, it was just so fundamental when I was growing up. It was just such an important part of my life. And then, of course, along comes this thing called Star Wars. And
what's the link between Star Wars and Flash Gordon? It's a tough one.
Well, for those who don't know, this is a little bit of trivia. George Lucas was going to do Flash Gordon. That was his intention all along. But then, unfortunately, he found out that the rights had been tied up with Dino De Laurentiis. And so he decided to do his own Flash Gordon. And we got this Star Wars thing, which bears no similarities at all to Flash Gordon. So,
whatsoever. We're talking apples and apples. I mean...
Yeah, exactly. But then, of course, the thing was growing up, the Flash Gordon was just ubiquitous for me. Every time I turned around, there was something related to Flash Gordon, and then so a lot of people, older people, may remember the Filmation animated series, which ran for 2 seasons. We won't talk much about the second season because that introduced a little purple dragon named Gremlin, or pink dragon named Gremlin. But the first season is absolutely phenomenal, and if you can track it down, highly recommend it. It's a terrific show. So yeah, there was the animated Flash Gordon, and then of course 1980 rolls around, and we have the big budget Sam Jones movie that comes out.
That's right, Queen soundtrack.
Right, flashy, campy, great fun. It remains a movie that I like to revisit frequently.
I'm actually going to show it to my son this weekend.
Oh, that's terrific. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, anybody who would look at it and go, "Oh, it's cheesy" or whatever, it's like, yes, it's supposed to be. Don't you get it?
It's a feature, not a bug.
Exactly, 100%. So that's all. That was all growing up with Flash Gordon, it was very much an important part of my life. And then somewhere along the line, Shane got the license. And now I had already written the Six Gun for Shane, and I had edited a lot of stuff even prior to that. So we had a nice little relationship. There it is.
So I actually just finished reading the comics. Like
Oh, great.
I couldn't find the last 3 or 4 trades, and I finally got them. Man, what a great series!
It's so good. Cullen Bunn and Brian Hurt.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Just fantastic.
So yeah, Six Gun happened. A couple other things happened, and then Shane came to me and said, "Hey, I got Flash Gordon. Do you have any interest in that?" Well, as I've already said to you just now, it was like so important to me growing up. So it was a dream come true. There was no way I was going to say no to that. And so, yeah, I said 100%, I'm on board. Then realized at that time we had like 80 plus years of IP that I needed to start mining and researching. And that turned into quite a thing. So it took a couple years to get that thing off the ground, but it was definitely a process that it was a very involved process. I read everything, I digested everything I could get, and we built a comprehensive Flash Gordon game that, at least in my opinion, will appeal to every type of Flash Gordon fan out there. So whether you're just a fan of the movie, whether you're a fan of the cartoon, the serials, the comics, the novels that came out in the 70s, there are references to all that stuff. Awesome. in the role-playing game. So
Tim commented that I agree. Princess of Mars is also probably like planetary romance. Definitely hits the. I mean, you have the fish out of water, the Earthling out of water kind of appeal to that. Ming's voice being voiced by Skeletor, yes,
yes. Just Flash Gordon, yes. It was Alan Oppenheimer. He was terrific.
I was telling you before this that I run like a monthly game for my one of my local game stores here in Dallas, and the kids wanted to play both sci-fi and they wanted to play fantasy, and we played Flash Gordon, and they adored it. It was the first time the club kind of had stepped away from playing a D20 game, and so I was like, we're gonna play Savage Worlds this week. They were like, all right, well, we don't know anything about that. I'm like, we're playing Flash Gordon. They're like, we don't know anything about that. And by the end of it, they were like, this is so cool, can I buy it? I'm like, well, you gotta go see what I don't know what we have on the show.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely a perfect match of a blend of those two genres. I mean, if you look at our technology, it's like crystal based. It's white sapphires that these power crystals, and you can do all sorts of crazy things with them. So it becomes magic. And then of course we have psionics in it there as well. So if you just embrace that as powers and magic spells, you can totally go run with that as well. So yeah, I think it's a perfect marriage. And and you don't have to be a fan of old school Flash Gordon to play it. Flash Gordon is set on another planet. It doesn't have to be set in 1934.
I huge fan. And I don't think I realized that you did the Six Gun adaptation that my son and I both just adore. But I open it up and there it is, told by you. So this was fantastic.
And now we got Pine Box coming out. I'm busy.
Yeah, you're busy. Actually, and I just, if you can see right here,
yes,
I got
see
Pine Box on my show. It is so much fun. So I run a lot of games for my son's kind of groups that he's involved in. Tink helps me set up the ones at the game store. Thanks for always doing that for me, Tink. And then on Wednesdays, I run a Savage Worlds Club at my son's school. And we just finished the dystopian future that I based off Fallout for them.
Nice.
And we're gonna run Pine Box here for a group of middle schoolers at a school club on Wednesdays, which is just going to be.
That'll be great. Yeah. I'm running it tonight for my group. So and we play at a local game store as well. So
well, I got to imagine that this is Landauer because he's on top of everything. If you guys get our newsletter, that is penned by you every week. So thank you for turning what from me is inevitably just a bunch of gibberish into like actual like news articles. Somebody's asking, how could Slipstream blend with Flash?
Well, I mean, Slipstream was effectively Flash with all the serial numbers lovingly filed away. And so I think there's a lot of potential crossover. Obviously, it's one of the first, or one of the earliest releases for Savage World, so you're
Yeah.
definitely going to have to do some upgrading and updating. Um, you could totally stick Mongo into that, into the Slipstream, like
Hmm.
it's been pulled in and it's with alongside all those other planets. I could totally see that working. Yeah, I mean, and again, take the archetypes and throw those in,
Yeah.
and there's mix it up. That's the great thing about Savage Worlds in general, is that you can blend genres so easily. I mean, you can do like, my whole thing was originally this little side story.
No, go for it. Yeah.
When I first put the pitch document together for Flash Gordon, I had all these proposed other projects that would be related to it. And one of my dream projects was Flash Gordon on Earth, because I really wanted to see, it was done in the comics back then, but I really wanted to see how we could do it. Like him, Flash, bringing all this Mongolian technology to
Yeah.
Earth. And it's happening during Weird War II. So, I mean, it would have been a beautiful
Oh,
blending.
that
Well,
would have
there's
been
no
awesome.
stopping you if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
playing Weird Wars or whatever. Go for it. But I think you can totally bring that stuff in, and bring in rocket ships and bring in White Sapphire technology and all the other things that we introduced in Flash Gordon, and make it work in your Weird War setting. So
That's
easy.
awesome. So can you share, do you have any, I know you got Pine Box. Is there more projects on the horizon?
Yeah, I'm kind of busy with one right now, but it's it's an NDA
That's
situation,
right.
so I can't say anything. It'll
Yeah.
be announced, I'm sure, at some point in the
That's right.
coming months. But there is one I'm working on right now.
There is nothing more fun than talking about redacted projects
Oh yeah,
on podcasts. Well, I can
yeah.
tell you that I'm working on something, but its
It's
title is redacted.
that all I'll say is that in many ways, like, well, writing Flash was an absolute joy. I mean, writing all of these games is an absolute joy. There's no question. I
Yeah.
love writing for Savage Worlds, but this one I think has a lot more actual joyful aspects to it,
Awesome.
even though it's high adventure. So, well, I think you're gonna dig it. But I gotta.
Okay. No, fair. So, what was the thing that you loved most? Like, I know it's like picking, a favorite limb, but out of the Flash Gordon material you put together, what was the thing that you're like, this one aspect came together just so beautifully with Savage Worlds, or the setting rule or mechanic or monster? Like, what was the thing that you went, this is really, for me, the thing that shines most out in the box?
I mean, I think building all of the various species on Mongo
Yeah.
was a blast, because of course it was so easy with Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you wanted to take a Hawkman, we've already got Avion, so it's really easy to kind of pull bits and pieces out of there.
Yeah.
But I think that was one of the things that I really enjoyed, was building that bestiary. And not just the main characters that we've all seen. I also pulled a lot of stuff in the little rarities in the comics, but then actually building all the monsters too. And that was a lot of fun, because in that case, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, I had to really go through with a fine-tooth comb all of the source material.
Yeah.
And there'd be instances where there would be a shot of something happening in the Mongolian desert, and there'd be some weird monster that Alex Raymond drew off in the distance. And I was like, well, that's got to be in the
We
bestiary.
got to do something with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like we have one panel, but with Savage Worlds, it was just so easy to take it and go, okay, well, obviously it's some kind of a dinosaur, so we can find a dinosaur in one of the existing Savage Worlds products and kind of just adapt it over there and make it so it works in the desert. And so a lot of that kind of stuff, I always have such a joy writing, is building out the things you're going to encounter and the people you're going to encounter in game. So
Yeah.
that was definitely a highlight.
So when you worked on a licensed project like this, did you have access? Did they like give you access to the archives, or was this stuff that you had to go out and like collect yourself for
Kind of a
research?
combination, because I really wanted to build out my own library, so I did invest a ton of money into getting all the books and things.
Oh no, it's for research purposes.
Yeah, exactly. My wife would be like, "It looks like you got more Flash Gordon books in the mail." Yeah, sorry, work. So Titan Comics did some phenomenal collections of the strips, and I've collected, I think, most of those that they released. They're big hardcovers, absolutely wonderful, and they go well
Titan does
beyond the
great
Alex
work.
Raymond stuff.
Yeah.
Just fantastic books. So I have those. I also got. I mean, there were some Dark Horse strips that were published. These are some of the later '50s era ones. I collected those novels. Obviously, I got the Blu-ray of the movie and all that kind of stuff. We did get the strips, PDFs, or at least scans of all the strips that came to us from King Features. So I had access to those online, which was great because then I could literally grab a picture and stick it in my document just to work off of, which otherwise I'd have to scan books, and that was who's going to do that?
Yeah.
So yeah, we did have access to some stuff, not so much archive material. It was published material, but they were very generous, and I mean, it was working with King Features was a joy. If I ever had the opportunity to do that again, because of course they have the Phantom and a few other really classic
I love
like
the
pulp
Phantom
characters. Yeah, I mean, I think we could totally do something with the Phantom for Savage
Oh,
Worlds.
it would be perfect.
Hint, Shane.
Yeah. Shane, if you're watching.
Yeah. So yeah, they were absolute joy. They were very much hands off, but they did provide us with some good information and material right up front.
The other one I would love to see us do for Savage Worlds is, speaking of the Phantom, I would love to see. Do you remember Defenders of the Earth?
Of course,
because the Phantom was part of that. Like,
and Flash,
and like, come on, it's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I would hope that I could see a Defenders of the Earth convention game. Like, somebody needs to put that together, run it at Gen Con, and invite me to your table because I want to play it.
Maybe this Gen Con or maybe this Gamehole Con.
Ooh.
I've already committed to one IP-inspired con game this year. Maybe I'll have to write a second because, like, even people who've never seen the show somehow know that theme song, right? That theme song just hit hard on a Saturday morning. And all right. Maybe I will take up that challenge. That would be a lot of fun.
The Shadow. That would be great. That's too.
Right. We'll just have to get Carl Kiesler to do all of the layout for our archetypes because, man, Carl, I don't know if you watch these, but I love Goonies versus Ghostbusters. Those character sheets are just...
No one does tables like Carl does tables.
No.
No one. I mean, no one.
And if he wasn't such a nice guy, it would be really easy to hate him. But he's such a nice guy.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Savage Worlds Sci-Fi Companion, which I'll put the link in the notes again. You've all been seeing the link. But you and I have gotten to look at a preview copy of this. So what were your initial thoughts kind of going through it? I mean, what's something that like really stood out to you that you're like, ooh, I'm really excited about the way that this companion handles this aspect of science fiction?
Oh, wow. Well, the funny thing is I've had science fiction companions for a while. I mean, I just looked up on my shelf. I do have this one handy.
Yeah.
But so I've had these books in my collection for a long time, and I just looking into this one and seeing how much everything has been embellished so much just fills me with such joy because we kind of only touched on certain things in the previous editions. So it's definitely, I mean, even down to like, well, you can discuss something like hacking.
Yeah.
In the previous editions, it was like a page. It was like really simple. I think originally, of course, back that was pre-hacking, so it was like a computer knowledge skill roll, and then or a dramatic task. And now we're still doing dramatic tasks, but there's like security levels that are involved for penalties, which are really cool, all the way from up to ultra. You've got all sorts of really wild new cyberware.
Yeah,
that was another thing I noticed when I was looking through this previous edition, is that literally had 1.5 pages of cyberware, and I think we have 3.5 pages of cyberware now in the new book.
Yeah.
So it's just everything is expanded, and there's so many wonderful toys to play with in this new edition.
Well, it's always interesting to me when you kind of look over, like, I was a big GURPS fan, right? And you look over like several generations of their science fiction stuff, and it's like, man, a lot of the stuff in this one ebook that you said was sci-fi, I now use today. So,
yeah. So there's definitely been a maturity of some of the science fiction tropes that even appeared in some of our earlier
Yeah.
work. So, but yeah, so far it's just looking great. You guys are gonna love it.
I'm looking for. Padre said, "Oh no, not again." You can have a Benny for the reference to Spaceballs. Your next game that you play in, you can just tell the players or the GM that you got a Savage Universe, Betty. They can go back and find the timestamp. We're 22 minutes in. I'm giving you a Benny in your game. Yeah, and Peg just said the Sci-Fi Companion is going to be over 300 pages. It's massive.
Crazy.
Yeah. So we did have a question. Is there any stabs that you saw for the retro sci-fi?
Well, it's funny.
It's 300 pages, and I gave this to Scott like 2 days ago.
I mean, the one thing I will say is that, and we were talking about this before we went on the air. You could take the Science Fiction Companion and totally do a retro science fiction game with that book.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily. I say we. I didn't work on the Science Fiction Companion,
Right.
but the book.
We as in it's the Peg.
As in the Peg family. It doesn't necessarily have at this point like a full array of retro rocket ships that you're going to find in the pages of Flash Gordon. And some of the technology will be a little bit more advanced. There's not really we don't lean too heavily into those tropes. But I think with just a little bit of adjustment, you could make it all work. And certainly all of the various species that are in there are dead on or easily adjustable. So I think, just with that book alone, you could do Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, Space 1999, any science fiction show or film you want to do. I think you could pretty much lift right out of this book.
Oh, John Carter of Mars. I'm actually doing the Science Fiction Companion is growing in the chat. It's over 9,000 now.
It's over 9,000.
I'm reading through the Space Trilogy. Lewis is Out of the Silent Planet right now.
Right.
With my family, and I'm like, well, I could totally run a Malacandra sci-fi setting, or H.G. Wells, right? Like there, everything from the bleeding edge of transhumanism, like Peter Hamilton stuff, all the way back to the glorious retro days of Lensman, Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Covering everything from atomic punk to zombie punk. Savage Art August Derelift's Mars. This chat, you guys are on fire.
We should be writing all these down.
The Super Saiyan Companion.
Okay, now it's out of control.
Now we're out of control. So I know you've had a long day. You've still got a day ahead of you. You've got you're running a game tonight.
I'm running Pine Box Middle School tonight. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: you've done one of your, one of those rare moments where what you really, really love, you got to pour yourself into a passion project. What's another one that, like, pie in the sky, anything goes? What is a passion project that you would love to see become?
Wow. Yeah, and the funny thing is that some of the stuff that I would toss out there is more like stuff that could be spun off of like the Science Fiction Companion. So it wouldn't necessarily, I don't think I would necessarily want to go with a full supplement, but like I'm an old school Blake 7 fan. So I think Blake 7 would run really well as a game. Also an enormous fan of the Tripods trilogy. Well, there were 4 books by John Christopher. They were basically young adult books written in the, I think, 60s, 70s.
Okay.
And it's about an invasion of Earth by a race of tripod creatures, and they walk around in tripods. So it has its origins going back to like War of the Worlds, but there's some really cool stuff in there. At the very least, I could see running these as convention games.
Yeah,
but those are those are like some of my favorite books. I'm a huge John Wyndham fan, and he wrote a lot of weird dystopian science fiction.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff. I mean, Yeah, I could totally see doing like a Jerry Anderson universe. That would be a lot of fun. Again, going back to like UFO and
Yeah.
Thunderbirds and Scarlet, Captain Scarlet, and all those. I think that would be kind of a fun thing to play with. But you'd have characters would all have to walk around like this, like puppets, marionettes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. But the funny thing is, a lot of the stuff that I really, really am a fan of, we've already done.
Yeah.
So, for example, Solomon Kane. I was a
Yes.
huge Solomon Kane fan, and
Mhm.
when the RPG came out, I was thrilled, and I still think it's one of the most beautiful lines we ever produced, or Peg ever produced. If you've ever had a chance to look at those role-playing games books for Solomon Kane, they are gorgeous books, and self-contained too at the time.
Yeah.
So you didn't actually need to get Savage Worlds to play it. So stuff like that, I mean, it's done. I
Yeah.
can run that. I can play with that. So
It's funny that you say that, because what brought me into the Pinnacle Arena was Savage Rifts, because Rifts is one of my all-time favorite settings
right,
for a role-playing game. And I was reading through the science fiction companion. I'm like, man, I could make a sweet Mechanoid Invasion trilogy game with this book.
right. Yeah, I
Do
mean,
I?
there's certainly role-playing games that I grew up with that I could see adapting to Savage Worlds. A few are out of print. I mean, I was a huge fan of Chill, so for
Mhm.
those who are familiar with that, and Time Master, which was another one produced by Pacesetter Games back in the day, a great time travel game. We haven't really done much with time travel in Savage Worlds, and I think that might be another one that we could tap into and do some fun things with.
Yeah. Oh man, Silverhawks,
Yeah,
another just amazing cartoon that would be gloriously represented in the
I mean,
sci-fi companion.
where's the Thundercats?
Right, Thundercats, Mask, you know. Um, so Tracy, who you know is doing the Han cluster, and we had her on last week, said that there is definitely genre advice for hard sci-fi, high sci-fi, space opera, cyberpunk, transhumanism. The stuff includes how to use the tools of the sci-fi companion to create the different genres and more. The companion is a collection of tools to mix and match with a lot of flexibility. Well said.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what's in that book.
I think we've seen, like, all of the companions to date have been very useful as sort of a toolbox for GMs to put together the game they want to play.
Right.
But as you kind of go through them, you can see there's more and more of that kind of advice. We're kind of refining dialing the toolbox in so that it's most effective. And to be honest, fantasy means something to, kind of ubiquitous to all of us. Maybe we have like slight level adjustments on what fantasy means, whether it's, I'm leaning more into the Greyhawk style, the Forgotten Realms, Malazan versus Joe Abercrombie. But man, sci-fi means so much more.
Yeah.
I mean, sci-fi is again, like everything from retro sci-fi through cyberpunk, Star Trek, Star Wars, transhuman. I mean, the breadth of science fiction is, I think, much more of a unique taste to a lot of people.
Oh, 100%. And the other thing too is, as a game designer, the companions are permanently on my desk because they're just such great resources for just to quickly look something up and get an idea and throw it into your manuscript. And so, I've got the fantasy companion right here. I run Pathfinder for Savage Worlds, but I still use the fantasy companion because there's some great stuff in there too. So I think all the companions are just essential books.
Yeah. I mean, I keep mine again, okay, I mean, literally within arm's reach.
There you go.
I've got the companions here.
Well, and yeah, that's a great comment. Yeah, Cryptite, the fantasy effectively evolved into science fiction.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, science fantasy, space, or planetary romance is the term that got kicked around for a long time. It wasn't really until Gernsback coined the sci-fi trope in science fiction that came along. But the stuff prior to that, absolutely, it was fantasy.
One of my favorite fantasy novels is The Worm Ouroboros.
Oh yeah.
which is, I mean, it always bugs me because it starts with the guy being drawn from Earth to a new planet, and then it's very clear that the author just was like, I'm not as interested in that guy as I am in everything else in the story, and so like he just disappears. Like you never hear from him after like chapter 3 or 4, and you get caught up in this more fantastical story. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good selection. Blade Runner, Judge Dredd, Johnny Mnemonic. You could
Man,
totally do all those in using
Oh,
the
yeah.
companion. 100%.
we could very much just have you guys start listing genres and lord it over you that we've read through this book and be like, oh yeah, you could do that. Oh, page 80. Woo.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
gonna love page 80. But we won't because we're not horrible people. We're just really excited for this Kickstarter to come out, the companion to come out. There's going to be a very intensive feedback process and hopefully by the end of, we got 2 more of these celebration streams going on before the wrap up of the campaign. I'm hoping to have more information to share on kind of what the feedback process is going to be, because we realize this means a lot of things to a lot of different people. We know that our aces, our swag, all of our licensees really lean on these companions. So we want people to be involved in the process. And that's one of the things that, to ensure we get it right, the companions just take longer than some of our other projects, like an adventure or even a new campaign setting is self-contained, whereas the companions have to stand for quite a length of time as the definitive resource for this genre.
I see all this Star Wars stuff floating out now too.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, Eddings definitely. Wait, we're talking about E. Eddings, who did the Worm Ouroboros?
Probably David Eddings.
Yeah, or I was like, or David Eddings, who did Belgariad, Malorian, all of those.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, thanks so much for taking some time out to just hang out and talk about.
Absolutely.
Talk about science fiction and Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, I'm a huge Flash Gordon fan. So thank you for all of the good times that you have provided. I mean, and again, like Pine Box Middle School and Sixth Gun. This is just fantastic. So let me put this. Yes, I loved the Belgariad as well, Padre. That was actually, so I grew up with science fiction, Star Wars, Star Trek. Like every Saturday and Sunday, we would watch old Star Trek episodes with my dad. And so I was reading the Zahn trilogy, I was reading Asimov, and it wasn't until high school when a buddy was like, we were trying to get the other person to read the other genre. And I don't even remember what I gave him, but he gave me the Dragonlance Chronicles. And that, unfortunately, he gave me the Belgariad first and then the Dragonlance Chronicles. And I was just hooked from then on. So, John Doom says, enjoy your Pine Box game tonight.
Hopefully it goes well. I'm going to be running the same game at KublaCon and probably at Gen Con. So we'll see.
Oh, very cool. Well, I hope to see you at
all
Gen
new
Con.
adventure. So.
We'll hang out and grab some food and talk Flash Gordon and sci-fi.
Absolutely.
All right, so here is the link one last time for the Science Fiction Companion. I will see you guys all next week. I'm going to have Brandon and Ross from Star Anvil Studios, who are doing Saints and Sinners, and they're going to be on to give a Saints and Sinners update, and then talk about what they loved of the Science Fiction Companion. So until next week, go out and play some Savage Worlds. And may all your dice ace. Have a good one, everybody.
Take care, everyone.